Okay, Talha, we're live. Thanks for joining me. Um, I'll go ahead and give you the floor. I think you kind of have an interesting entrepreneurial journey, so maybe we can kind of start with your origin story and how you found the path of entrepreneurship.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Connor. Um, Ever since I was a kid, I was told that the only way to get ahead in life was to, study hard and get good grades. I did that for 12 years, always at the top of my class. But when I went to university, I realized that if I kept on doing that, I would, ended up just being like any other individual, which I was something that I did not want to do. So I shifted my focus from my studies and started learning more on skills, mainly around sales and software development. And at that time, there were some experiences that happened, which was both my parents lost their job, and I had to go out there and make money. I could get 100 out of 100 in an exam, but I could not go out there and earn a single dollar. So when you're desperate to make money, the one thing that came to my mind was to go get a job, and I tried getting a job, but I did not get a job. So I was figuring out what to do, and I thought to myself, what skills do I have? One of them was that I was really good at writing, and an opportunity that I saw that the kids in my university were rich and lazy. So I was like, okay, that's a problem that I can solve if they are willing to pay me if I do their work. So I created an Instagram page where I would just offer ghostwriting services, and I started messaging everyone I could find online. And eventually, one of them replied, and they paid me around $60 for 30 minutes of work. So that was sort of a realization that I can make money with my skills sitting at my home. So I was sitting on my bed, on my shorts, on my laptop, and I made $60 for 30 minutes of work. Again, $60 is not a big amount, but for me, that realization that, okay, I can make money online. Just to give you a context, my father used to work in a bank and he used to make $30 a day. So I made double the amount in, 30 minutes. So that's when I decided, okay, I need to learn more about what. Back then I did not knew what is entrepreneurship or what is a business. I was just trying to make money for myself. So for the next 3 years of my life, I spent um, every waking hour learning as much as I could on business, on making money online, and that was my first venture. I scaled it to a team of 30 plus writers in Pakistan, and I had around 400 clients. Like,
I think that's really cool. You were born in Pakistan, right? I want to touch on that too, kind of your family story, and then your father chose to emigrate out of Pakistan too. Maybe you can touch on that and kind of what led him to that decision and why you didn't end up staying in Pakistan.
sure. So my family was actually raised. My parents were raised in Dubai. They lived there for 30, 40 years, and then they immigrated. They went back to Pakistan. Now, Pakistan being a country, there aren't that many opportunities, and the lifestyle there isn't that good, and just the overall environment was not good to raise a family. And I'm grateful for my father that he took that decision. So that was one of the reasons he thought that I need to go uh, to another country to give a better life for my family. And another reason was that he had a business which you know did not work out, so he had to immigrate to Dubai. So that was, I think, one of the main reasons that he immigrated, was that to give a better life to us, and he succeeded.
And I'm curious, so your parents, were they born in Dubai or they were born in Pakistan and immigrated to Dubai? I guess I just don't understand. If you are born in Pakistan, I'm just kind of curious of the process to immigrate and leave the country. Maybe for others that are
Yeah.
listening that live in Pakistan, how do you leave Pakistan if that's what you want to do?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, back my mother was actually born in Dubai. My father was born in Pakistan, and the way they immigrated was back then they immigrated with ship, so technically illegally. So I still remember my grandfather told me the story
Mm.
that he came through a ship, and then when they were docking the ship, they got caught, and then he requested one of the officers to let him go, and then he let him go. So back then there weren't that many regular strict rules now that they have here. Uh, and so that's how they came there, and then eventually, because again back then, so just to give you context, India and Pakistan was one country, like a subcontinent, and then there was the partition in 1947. So a lot of people who immigrated from India to Pakistan and Pakistan to India had lost everything that they have spent their lives building. And our family was one of them, where they built a lot of things, but it was, they lost most of the stuff. So there weren't that many resources for them over there. And again, the political conditions were also not that good, because if there are problems politically and there is instability in a country, then it's very difficult to make progress. So that's when they decided to go there. And the reason they came back, because back then Dubai was just a desert, right? There weren't that many opportunities. So now the city that we see, not many people could envision that this would become the go-to place for everyone. So that's when they thought, okay, we need to go back. But that was a mistake from their side. But then eventually a lot of progress started happening, and then they came back. So I don't know the reason, but that was the main reason. And if anyone wants to go out there, now there's processes, obviously, depending on what skills you have. And you can immigrate on tourist visa or work visa. There are a lot of options right now which weren't there back then.
And so maybe just while we're on this subject, I mean, what do you recommend for young people growing up in Pakistan? Would you say try and immigrate to a place like Dubai, or I know you've kind of made money online. Are there opportunities to stay in Pakistan now and make money online? I mean, I know I've worked, producing this podcast or cutting it up into shorts. I've worked with people located in Pakistan before. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any advice.
I mean, it's very subjective. My answer might be very controversial, but see, the one thing that everyone should do is focus on their skills initially, right? Even if they try to immigrate to other countries, what you would do there. So I would suggest everyone, that's what I suggest to my friends. It's like, okay, first focus on yourself. If you have any skills, and first learn some skills, try to make some money online. And then obviously if there's an opportunity, I personally would suggest everyone just leave, because regardless of if you're living there and you're making money, the environment there is very toxic, right? And again, there isn't there's lots of instability. The currency is highly inflated. So there are a lot of different problems. And again, the lifestyle isn't that good. So I personally would recommend focus on learning some skills, making money, and immigrate and change your nationality. And that's what I'm focusing on. I'm trying to change my nationality as well. So that's something person that I would do, because yeah, you can't wait for a country to change, right? It will take decades, or several decades to come to a stage where there's stability. So if you have the opportunity, I would suggest do that.
I'm curious about you. You say you're changing your nationality. You also live in Bahrain currently and not Dubai. So I'm curious why you chose Bahrain over Dubai, if there's any reason specifically.
Yeah. Actually, I did not choose it. This was like circumstances led me here. So we're living in Dubai. My mother used to, she was a teacher in school, and she used to give tuitions. And my father, we were used to work in a driving school, so he used to teach people how to drive. And then again, we had our own challenges growing then, mainly around financial, and that's something that drives me. Growing up, seeing a lot of lack, a lot of financial instability. I'm very motivated to, um, you know, have at least a better life for now. So one of my uncles who came to Bahrain, and he invited us here. So because again there weren't that many opportunities for my parents as well, because of the skills and education they had. So they're like, okay, this seems like a new country where we can go and explore new opportunities. So that was one of the reasons we came to Bahrain. Other than that, there was not any reason, because my uncle invited all of our family here. So my mother's mother was here. So that's one of the reasons we came. So that's one of the reasons we came here.
And do you have plans to stay in the Middle East forever? So I get you're Pakistani, parents immigrated to Dubai, now you're in Bahrain. Is that a place you see yourself staying for the foreseeable future? Or do you have plans to, I don't know, continue to move west to Europe, United States, whatever it is? Just curious.
Yeah. Yeah, so the thing is, normally when you go to these countries in Europe and West, if you live there for a certain amount of period of time, they would give you the nationality, right? Uh, I've been living here for 16 years, and in these countries, it's very difficult. They don't give you the nationality. So if I don't get the nationality, then what's the use of living in this country? So personally, I would move if I get an opportunity to change my nationality. But other than that, the standard of living here is really high. It's very peaceful. It's very friendly. It's very respectful. peaceful. And again, for personally for me, for cultural and religious reasons, this country is really a good place to stay because I've been hearing a lot of things about the West from my friends and stuff like that, and I realize it's not something where I personally can live. So I plan to stay here in this region, and even if I move, it will only be for changing my passport and something. And there's this country called there's a YouTube channel called Yes Theory, if you're familiar with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of them, one
Hmm.
of the guys there is Egyptian, and he made a
Hmm.
video on how he bought the passport of Saint Kitty's, and that allowed him to travel. So I'm exploring that as well, because you don't have to live in a country to get a passport. You can just pay and do that. Because mainly the reason is for travel. It's very difficult for me to travel. I get my visa rejected, and even if I go into this country, I get special treatment. So I want to make sure that does not happen. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. No, I think that makes sense. No, so I think it's interesting. It's just totally different for me what it's like living in the Middle East on the other side of the world. So I appreciate you answering those questions. But I want to kind of circle back. So you mentioned if you're a young person in Pakistan, for example, or anywhere in the world, you said you need to focus on building skills. You taught yourself to sell through that agency the writing agency essentially, right? Or I don't know if there were other things you did to teach yourself to sell. And then I do know that you run a Web3 development agency
Yes,
currently. So you taught yourself to code. So maybe can you give some details on how you got yourself to where you are today, how you built those skills up, maybe for others in the
for sure,
audience that are listening to this?
for sure. I think in order to do anything in life, you need to have a burning desire, because that's the source of anything that you do, right? There has to be a reason of why you're doing it. For me, the burning desire, the why was very strong. So that's why I was able to do that. So before even any learning, any skill assigning, or what to do, everyone needs to have a really clear why on why they are doing it, right? If they're willing to dedicate 5, 10, 20 years of their life, they should know why they are doing it, because on the path, there'll be a lot of obstacles, failures, and challenges. And if you don't have a really strong why or a really strong reason or a really, deep burning desire, it's very easy for you to give up. So for me, the why was very simple, clear, and the I had a burning desire. So once I had the realization that okay, I can make money online with the skills that I have from my laptop, I scaled that. So I spent the next 3 years, and it's not just one thing that led me there. There are a lot of things, right? It was books, online, podcasts, and individuals, their stories that inspired me. Then the circumstances that are having, and the people that came into my life. So when people are like, okay, if there was one thing that led you here, it's not just one thing. There are a lot of things that are happening simultaneously that get you there. So once I scaled that agency, I realized that I want to do something big. So again, human beings are, never satisfied. So even though I was making really
Mhm.
good money as compared to the Bahrain, because I was earning mainly in dollars, I was like, okay, I need to do the next big thing. So I asked myself, if I kept on doing this writing thing or this post writing thing, what's the maximum scale I can achieve? And the answer that came to me was not that big, right? Again, because there isn't a lot of demand, and I'm very grateful I took that decision, because after ChatGPT came out, my that business model was completely obsolete if I was still doing it. So what I did for that business was I delegated it to a few of my friends, and it was mainly on autopilot, that business, and I set out to learn new things. So I enrolled in university in software engineering, and I was learning programming mainly. And when met my co-founder Shehroz and Talha, they were my friends since fourth grade, and now we're doing business still. I thought, okay, with their skills and my skills combined, we can replicate the same model that we did in ghostwriting business. I can do that in a software business. Um, so the way we started was we started going into different hackathons. So hackathon is basically like a 2-day event where you'll build something and then try to market it. So we started going into a lot of competitions, and we lost a lot of them initially, but eventually we started winning these competitions. And one of the competition that we won was a game jam. Basically, we had to build a game in 48 hours. We won the third prize, and again, what happens is, so there's this framework called the success cycle, which has 4 components, which is basically belief, potential, action, and results. So everyone, whenever they want to do something, they start with a belief, and then depending on their level of belief, they're able to tap into their potential, and then from potential they take actions, and from actions they get results. So at that point, I had another realization: the bigger your belief is, the more you'll be able to tap into your potential. The more you tap into your potential, the more actions you take, and the more actions you take, the more results you get, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and a, success, positive success cycle. On the other hand, which I spent the most of my life in with a very low belief. And when you have a lot of low belief, you don't tap into your potential, and you don't take action, you don't get results. So that was something when I realized, okay, we spent a lot of time, we had a lot, and we had believed that we can win this thing. So we won that. And after that, I'm skipping a lot of details, but one day in 2019, Amazon Web Services, there was a company who came to our university and they were giving a workshop, and we're like, okay, we need to work at this company, but we didn't know how and where to start. So, and I know a few months passed by, and then there was this event. One of my friends told me, Talha, be there at 8 a.m. So we went to this new building, and once we were there, we're like, okay, this is Amazon Web Services. And we're like, okay, this is the company we wanted to work in. So there was a competition which was supposed to be for fourth year students, and we were second year students, and we weren't supposed to be there. And when they asked us, like, which year are you in, we're second year, like, you can't be here. But we were so persistent that we were like, no, we want to be a part of this competition. And I think one takeaway here is that you have to be very persistent, because if you ask, you will get. If you don't ask, you will never get. So what ended up happening, there were like 6 or 7 different teams, but we were the only team that showed up for 18 days straight, right? And eventually we ended up winning that competition. So another thing, takeaway for us is consistency, because it's really easy for people to get motivated and make plans, but it's all about consistency, putting in and day out. So when we won that competition, the government of Bahrain, and Amazon Web Services, the company itself, like, this is something very innovative. So what we built was that in the world there are around 400 million people that are deaf, more than that can't have a normal communication with you. So let's say if I was a deaf person, I could not understand you unless and until you know American Sign Language or any other sign language, basically ASL. So we built a prototype that, and then again, during those days, there was one video where a deaf mute person was trying to order through a drive-through, and that representative was being rude to him just because they did not understand him. So we built a prototype that could, if you sign in front of a camera, and that would convert it into audio, and then once a normal person would speak into that device, that would convert it into a sign language. So that prototype was very interesting. So eventually, Amazon hired us for 2 years. We worked there as interns, and they were like, okay, you have built this prototype, now go build it into a business. Now we're 3 guys with coding skills and knew a little bit about business, but we didn't know how to run a startup. In order to run a startup, you technically need to raise money. We're not that well off where we could just keep investing our own money. So we were trying to raise money from investors, but no one was willing to fund us. Everyone was like, this is too ambitious. What if Google built this? What you would do? And again, there were a lot of rejections we were facing. So we were figuring out what to do, because if we don't have any more money, we can't keep continuing our idea, and eventually we'll have to go do a job again. So one of my friends, Talha and Shahroz, they got into crypto mining, which is basically, so the way blockchains work is you need to have a node to validate transaction, and the people that are facilitating those transactions, they're called miners, and they earn a certain percentage of that transaction. So they started crypto mining, and they started making money through that. And personally, the exposure I had to cryptocurrency was I had just invested in Ethereum, and it was every day there was the price was increasing. I could not understand why it was happening, but it was being every day the price was rising.
What
So
is
in
the
21,
timing of this? I'm just curious. Is this 2020, 2021?
so this was, my friend started mining in 2020. Yeah, and I personally started investing in 2020 as well. So and again, I'll explain later on. So that was around 2020. So in 2021, we were still in a position where we had this prototype of the product, but we did not have money. No one was willing to fund us. And then again, we were running out of time as well, because our families had expectations from us. Okay, guys, what are you doing? You can't keep on doing something where you're not making anything, right? And personally, for me, I could not afford to do that. I need to start making money, because my other business was also not performing really well. So we're like, okay, guys, we need to do something big. I was scrolling one day through TikTok, and I saw a video where the guy was like, there's this thing called drop shipping where you can basically have an online store and make millions of dollars. And like, okay, this is how I'll make my next million. So I started spent some time figuring that out, but that also did not work out. So during this process, I tried a lot of different ventures that failed. And that's one thing, right? People only see the thing that worked, but they never saw the several other things that failed. So and again, fast forward to 2021, where like we were absolutely disheartened. Okay, we will stop this. We can't continue. We're not able to raise money, and we're just wasting our time. So we're sitting in my friend's car. Shahir was like, okay, what to do next? And it's like, there's something called an NFT. And I was like, okay, what's an NFT? And he showed me a picture of a bored ape or a monkey. I'm not sure if you have seen those pictures online, but it's basically an image of an ape. And he told me that this picture is worth around 1.2 million. And I was like, how is that possible? And at that time, my brain started, like, okay, how is this possible? Why would someone buy an image for millions of dollars? So I was hooked to that concept. And I spent the next 3-4 weeks. I stopped everything and I just focused on learning everything I could about NFTs. And then I realized, okay, we have been ignorant and missing out on a very big revolution or technology shift that is happening. So to give you context, when initially there was barter system, right, where people used to trade wheat for meat and meat for wheat and stuff like that. That eventually they had coins and eventually they had paper currency. When they had paper currency, it was backed by gold. So a country could only print as much money as they had. But eventually in 1970s, the US President Nixon broke the gold standard. And after that, the US has been printing as much money as we want, which caused a lot of problems in the financial system. So when the internet came out, there was a group of people called the cypherpunks that were trying to create a digital currency. And a lot of effort were made, but eventually every effort was, useless. Eventually, Bitcoin succeeded in 2008, which was the first digital currency that was fully decentralized, and it solved the problem of double spend. So the problem of double spend is that, let's say if you were using digital money via email, and if I send you a picture of $1, I could send it to you and I could send it to another person. So eventually I'll spend $1 twice, right? So that's why the problem of double spend was not solved, but with Bitcoin, they were able to solve that. So initially Bitcoin came out, which was mainly for two purposes. That was, transfer of value and store of value, like a digital gold. Then eventually Ethereum came out, which was like a global computer. And then a lot of things keep on happening. Then when I understood what's going on, I realized, okay, this is too big to ignore. So similarly, 20 years back when the internet came out, and the companies that build something are, ruling the world, like Amazon, Facebook, Google, and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I want to be a part of this revolution, and I want to create something in this new Web3 world, that can have an impact. And eventually, the goal is to make money. I could make money. So we jumped in. We dropped that project that we were working on, and we launched a project which was called a game. It was a Web3 game. 3 weeks in, we sold out the initial connection, and we made $100,000 in 3 weeks of time. I'm like, okay, cool, this is amazing. So and again, we're like, we were all in, and the way we made that money was through pure grind. We spent 18 or 19 hours a day going into different Discord servers, different Twitter profiles, and we're just, constantly grinding, and eventually it paid off, through which we learned a lot, and through which we made a lot of good connections in the Web3 ecosystem. Now, what happened was that when we were working on that project, we were developers, so we could do most of the stuff ourselves. But there was one thing we could not do, which was smart contract development. So think of smart contract development as programs on the blockchains. So in order to run any program on the blockchain, you need to have a smart contract. So, and we were trying to find people who could do it, and there was no one, literally no one online. Even if you found people, they were anonymous, they were charging a lot, and they were just, untrustworthy. So that was like one problem in the back of our head. And the way we solved it was that we learned ourselves. So going back to the project, so we had the runway in crypto, right? And we're like, okay, we'll keep on working on this project. But what ended up happening, the market crashed and all of our runway was wiped out. And that was a mistake on our side where we did not, convert it into fiat or something. We just kept it in crypto. So when the runway was wiped out, we're like, okay, what do we do now? We don't have anything to do. So we decided that, okay, we will use our skills, sell our skills, and then take that money to continue on this project. So that was the initial plan back in 2022 when we started this company called Nalikes Studio. Three friends, and we'll just sell our skills. Little did we know that this would turn into a whole company. We through friends or through word of mouth, we got a project from Bugatti Group, which is a Canadian company that's used to sells luxury handbags, and they wanted a development partner. They wanted a company who could take care of their entire tech, and we're like, we could do it. So we did that, and a few months in, they succeeded. They made some good money, and through that, we got a lot of recognition. And ever since then, day by day, it's been 3 years now. We have grown from a team of 3 to 15, and we do end-to-end product development in the Web3 space. So if any company or startup wants to build a product, because again, there's a huge learning curve, right? So if someone is coming from the traditional world, where traditional development world, they have to learn a lot about blockchains. They've learned a lot about smart contracts. So we help those companies, speed that process up by building the product. So that's where we are right now, running this company full time with 15 people, and yeah, it's going great.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Excuse me. And I want to back up a bit. So you talked about like, because I kind of learned about crypto too as it was peaking in 2021, and you talked about how you were building your own apps and you had all your holdings in crypto. I'm just curious, what did you have it in? Was it just in your own altcoin, or was it in some of the
Yeah,
bigger
yeah, it was.
coins when it crashed?
Yeah, it was in Ethereum mainly, and then altcoins. Because again, we were very new, right? We did not know that there are market cycles. We were like, okay, this will remain stable. Little did we knew that it's volatile, and it's not a good idea to keep your company's runway in crypto. If I was if I could go back, I would keep it in stable coins, because stable coins are more stable. But again, stable coins are not also that stable. So, but that was the problem, that we kept it in something volatile. So that was the reason, right? We had runway for a few months, but it was slashed in half, or 70% of it was slashed.
And then, yeah, I mean, because to be honest, I got kind of screwed too. I don't know if you've ever heard of like strong block or like drip protocol
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
the anchor protocol.
You're familiar with drip?
Yeah. So I put I mean, just to, I don't know if I want to give too many specifics, but I put some money I discovered, in peak time, like right when strong block was going way up. I put money in there and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to make whatever, $5,000 a month. And then I took the 5-10 grand I made and I put it into drip. And for quite a while, drip was spinning out a couple $100 a day, and then obviously it just crashed. And then I would take the money
Yeah.
from drip and I would put it in anchor, and then anchor crashed, and I was
Oh,
just like, okay, I
yeah.
guess I'm
Okay.
I guess I'm screwed. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but maybe you could kind of speak to how you overcome that. I don't know if that hurt people having interest in the space, like, hey, this peaked and then it crashed, but it sounds like your team is growing and there's still a lot of demand for Web3. So what's your stance about like where we are, right? Are we still in that bear market for Web3 and crypto, or are we coming out of it based on what you're seeing from interest in building projects and things like that?
Yeah. See, the thing is, people don't care about technology, right? People care about their problems. And that's one thing that most people need to understand, is that no one cares about the blockchain. No one cares about Ethereum. No one cares about how fancy your product is. People have problems and they only care about that. For example, take example of phone, right? Nobody cares that this is a phone or something like that. They're like, okay, I can call my friend when I have a need. I can text my friend when I have a need. So people care about their problem. So initially, when the internet came out, there were basically these protocols, and no one cared about it, right? But people only cared when they could learn online, then they could, do a bunch of things on. So the thing with technology is that the people who are creating this technology, they need to think of problems and they need to communicate in problems. Because if you go to an average person and tell them about crypto or NFTs, they're like, okay, I have my bills to pay, I have my own problems to do that. But if you tell them that, okay, this crypto can change the financial system, and that financial system could help you improve your life, then they would start making sense to them, right? So the main point here is that there would always be a new technology, right? Blockchain being one of them. but it would only matter when it could solve people's problems. So blockchain technology at its core is something that's going to stay. It's very revolutionary. It's something that it's more bigger than some people understand. So, but eventually later on we'll start having these use cases or applications where in the back end this technology is being used, but initially the people don't know. I'll give you an example. For example, Fortnite, right? You're familiar with that game?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I personally used to play it a lot. My brother plays it a lot, and they used to spend a lot of money in this game. So when you buy the virtual currency V-Bucks and you buy these in-game assets, well, technically you're just paying this company, and they're just creating from their end. There's no cost. They can create as many copies as they want, and eventually, when do you want to sell it? You can't sell it. When you want to take it from one game to another game, you can. So, but if you tell those gamers, there's something called a non-fungible token, where you take this asset and put it on the blockchain, and it's in your own wallet, and then you can sell it whenever you want. You can take it from one game to another. Then it start making sense to them. So with this technology, there are a lot of use cases across several different industries, and we are seeing with time, because again, but what ends up happening is that people look at the price. Like, okay, if the market is going down, this means the technology is also going down. So there are a lot of bad actors as well in this ecosystem that they're purely focusing on the speculative part of it. But there are some projects or some companies that are focusing on the actual applications of technology. So for personally, I burnt all ships and when it came into crypto, all Web3 most of the time, and eventually, yeah, it's I'm taking a bet on this. So this will become something. We don't know how exactly this would turn out to be, but at some point, all of these things would connect, and yeah, and we are helping
Can,
these companies do that. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe we can just touch on, because you kind of touched on it, like Fortnite. You're basically just paying the company. Can you touch on how play to earn games work and how they can be sustainable? I forget what the big game was in
Yeah, it was
21,
called
early
Axie
22,
Infinity.
but I think the issue, yeah, that's it. I think the issue, and I don't know where it is today, right? The issue is what happens when people lose interest in the game, or how do you, if Axie Infinity has its own internal token that you earn from playing the game, you need to ensure that that token holds its value, right? Otherwise, people will not play. Um, so I don't know. You're much more involved in the space than me. I don't know how you kind of overcome that, or if you think in the future that play to earn games are sustainable and people could earn a living or earn money playing them. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's a really interesting space, though.
definitely. So, well, most of the games right now are Ponzi schemes, to be very honest, which means that they only work as long as more money keeps flowing into the game. So, so
Hmm.
what if you break it down, right? If you make it very simple, there are few things that do not exist in the current games that blockchain technology can solve. The first one is ownership of digital assets, right? So that's one part that blockchain technology could solve, is that you actually own your items. And if you go back, the creator of Ethereum blockchain, Vitalik, the reason he created Ethereum was that he used to take this game, I can't remember, and then he had a lot of in-game assets, which was just taken away from him when. So, so that is the reason why Ethereum started, and why the concept of digital ownership started to come out. So that's one aspect of play to earn or Web3 games, that you could own your assets. And the second is you can earn anything, because in all these games that exist out there, there's some sort of virtual currency that you earn, right? In terms of points, in terms of gems and stuff like that. But those gems or those um, currency do not have any actual real world value. So with blockchain technology or play to earn games, it's basically the value that you have created in the game is something that you can cash out, right? Because I personally used to play FIFA a lot, and I used to earn millions of dollars, millions of coins in the game, and I could not cash that value out. The only way I could cash it out is I could sell it to another player on a marketplace like eBay, and then they would PayPal. But what if we just make it seamless on the platform, where there's one bunch of players that have money but they don't have time, and there are one sort of players that have time but they don't have money. So the players who don't have money can spend their time and create value, and then sell those value to this people who just want to come in and play the game. So that's how play to earn games are currently working, and that's what was happening with Axie Infinity. So in order to play the game Axie Infinity, you had to prepare your Axies for battle, right? And which took time. So mostly people in the West did not have time technically. So people in Philippines and these Vietnam, they had time. So they used to spend time and train these athletes for battle, and then you would sell them to players who would just want to come in and play. So eventually, if these games would only work when there is an in-game economy, when there, because again, in order for an economy to work, there has to be supply and demand. Where is something coming from and where is something going? So these games would only work when there are all different kind of players. Some people who are putting their time, and some people who are just putting, inserting their capital. Because we have known from these games like Call of Duty, Fortnite, that there are people who are willing to spend, right? So that's how the money is inserted into the ecosystem, and then that money is used in different ways. There are many experiments being happening right now. No one has been able to figure it out, but there are some projects that are working on it, and eventually we'll see it happening, if that makes sense.
And so, yeah, I think that makes sense. And I'm just curious, are you like deliberately seeking out companies that want to develop play to earn games, or are you taking more of a passive approach and companies just approach you and they say, hey, I want to build XYZ, and you say, okay, I know how to build it, but let's do it. Do you advise
Yeah.
them on strategy, or you do more just take what comes your way and accommodate your clients'
Yeah,
asks?
no, we're very picky in what we work with. When we were starting out, we were working with anyone and everyone because we needed to earn. But now that we have enough credibility and reputation, we choose the projects we want to work on. The reason why, because again, we have the skills, right? We can create our own products. But the thing is, we personally don't have figured out or have enough conviction on working on something, right? So that's why we're like, okay, while we figure out what we want to do, we can use our skills to help other people who know what they want to do. So mainly we work with startups, funded startups, or bootstrap startups that have an idea of, because again, blockchain is just uh, an enabler, right? But what is the actual problem? So someone wants to solve the problem of digital ownership. Someone wants to solve a problem of for allowing music artists to earn royalty, which is a whole set of another problem that Spotify has created, right? So if you're an artist on this platform, you earn very little, right? But those artists would sell NFTs and make more money, like this digital artists, musicians, and stuff like that. So mainly we work with these companies that don't want to hire their own team, because if you hire your own team, that's more costly, right? And that part of the world is obviously more costly. So for us, the thing is, we're fast, we are very cost effective, and yeah, it's just like an outsourced team where even if the product did not work out, they would not have to fire people or they would have to pay a lot of salary. So that's the way we have figured out, and that's where our value proposition, right? We help these founders and startups make products in 8 to 12 weeks, test out if there's a product market fit, and then continue else they can scrap it and move on to the next.
No, I think it's a good strategy. I think it's really smart to just continue to get exposure and experience until you say, hey,
Yeah.
this is where we want to go all in. So
Yeah, and another reason I like to do is I am selling shovels, not digging gold. If you're familiar with that analogy. Yeah, so in a
yeah,
gold
yeah.
rush, everyone wants to dig gold, but they're only the people who make money is the people who are selling shovels. So I plan to sell shovels for some time until I know what
No,
what
no,
gold to do.
you're smart. I like it a lot. So one question I had, and I forgot who said this, but I remember someone saying that blockchain itself is essentially a commodity or a technology, in that you could almost compare all the different blockchains today, whatever it is, Avalanche, Cardano, Ethereum, Polygon, to kind of the .com bubble in the early 2000s, where there's just so many today, and in the future it's going to kind of consolidate. I don't know if you agree with that view, or if you think that all these blockchains can exist simultaneously and um, succeed. And if you build on a specific blockchain with your company, if you guide people toward things, or again, you let them choose and say, yeah, we can build that on Binance, or we could build that on Ethereum.
Yeah, so that's a valid point, and it's very hard to say which chains would survive. There are many chains that are trying to do the same thing. Well, there's no one right answer because we don't know how the space would look like in 10 years, right? Because once the demand increases, then there would be need for all of these blockchains. And again, some chains have differentiated themselves by the speed of transactions, the cost of the transaction cost, and stuff like that. So to answer the question of why there are so many chains, well, because everyone thinks they have a better technology with which they can solve the problem. Because let's say if you want to build a game where there are a lot of transactions, you can't build it on Ethereum because the transaction costs are really high. So you can have to go to an L2, or you have to go to other chains like Solana where the costs are low. So it's good that there are a lot of chains because each chain serves on purpose. That's one thing, right? And eventually, once there is demand, these chains would be needed. Or it might happen that only a few remains and all of the others are out of business. So us as a solution provider, we let the client choose, because mostly the clients have their own preference because of their use case. We want to build on this specific chain, so we do that. But in case where they ask us, we tell them, and the way we build it, and again, the future of dApps or games would be multi-chain. So it does not matter if you want specific chain. So let's say if you build on Ethereum, it's very easy to go to other EVM chains like Polygon, Avalanche, BNB, and all Arbitrum, Optimism. So it's very easy because the code base is same. You can easily transfer them. But in the future, each application would be multi-chain, and we won't even know which chain we are on. And there are some chains like Cosmos or Polkadot that are working on connecting all these blockchains with the concept of IBC, Internet Blockchain Protocol. So yeah, well, we don't know and we can't say. We'll just have to wait and see how things turn out to be.
And isn't one of the problems, right? And maybe this is an oversimplification, but Ethereum is so popular that there's so much demand that it increases those gas fees for transactions, which kind of just creates a problem for being the second most
Yeah.
popular blockchain. I mean, that's probably oversimplification, but I mean, I remember like we were talking about earlier, I try and pull stuff out of Strong Block and it'd be like, okay, your gas fee is going to be $150. And it's like, okay, that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah, that
if
is the
that's
reason.
fair.
It's absolutely correct, because right now, obviously, transaction fees are higher, and as the network gets more congested, which means that more and more people want to do transaction, the gas fee would higher. So the way, again, it works is that how many requests are being sent. So if there are a lot of requests, so I'll give you an example. So imagine there's an ice cream truck and people want to buy ice cream, right? And the ice cream is $1. So there are 10 people in the line. So everyone is paying $1 to get an ice cream. But the last one say, okay, I'm going to pay $10. So they will eventually come at the front, and now the price of ice cream is $10. And then someone would come, okay, I'll pay $100. So the price of ice cream will become $100, right? So it depends on how much, what
Mhm.
amount of someone is willing to pay to validate their transaction. So that's the concept between gas fee, right? So if the network becomes congested, if someone wants to for their transaction to be speed up, they would increase the fee, and eventually the whole network would have to pay that fee. So yeah, that's how I was telling you, right? Ethereum is not the right fit for some of the applications, but eventually Ethereum would become a settlement layer where most of the dApps would be on L2s like Polygon, Arbitrum, and stuff like that. And the way L2s work is that they do the transaction, but the settlement is done on Ethereum, but it's much faster and much cheaper. And we'll see how things turn out to be, because right now, if you want to build a dApp, an application that is going to be used by millions of people, it does not make sense to make it on Ethereum, because again, it's not sustainable for the users to pay that. So for that, we'll have to choose any other chain. And again, so in blockchain, there's something called blockchain trilemma, which means speed, decentralization, and security. So at any given time, each blockchain can have two things. So if a blockchain is speed, very fast, if a blockchain is fast and secure, then it's not decentralized. If a blockchain is secure and decentralized, then it's not fast. So each blockchain has their own problems. So, but there are new blockchains
Mm.
coming out like near that can validate, I think, 60,000 transactions per second and so on, with very low gas. So eventually we'll see a lot of things happening, and we won't know 10 years from now or 20 years from now which chain would be the one which is being used most. But again, this would all come under the surface, where the end user won't know what they're using, because right now when using Facebook or Instagram, you don't know what cloud providers they are using, you don't know what protocols they are using. So that's not something the end user is concerned with, but mainly the us developers or the product founders are concerned with.
Yeah. No, a lot of good points. I'm curious too. You have Bitcoin, and then I think you have Ethereum, and then you have all the other ones that you just described. I mean, can you maybe articulate from your perspective how Bitcoin differs from those other blockchains? Because correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, right? I view it as more of a store of value, a buy and hold, a digital gold. You're not building dApps and DEXs on Bitcoin's blockchain, correct? Or has
Yeah.
that changed?
Yeah, actually, that has changed. So initially, Bitcoin was mostly for store of value and transfer value, but there's a whole because again, Bitcoin is not the best technology, but it's one of the first one that proved the concept. So it would always have, that advantage of being the first one, and that's hence the most valuable. But now what people are doing, they have created L2s like Stack or BRC20 protocols with which you can build dApps on top of Bitcoin as well. So that's like some people are against it, some people are on it, but now it's possible to build applications on top of Bitcoin as well. But mainly the main use case of Bitcoin is store of value, uh, and like digital gold, right? So and again, I was reading that someone transferred billions of dollars of worth of Bitcoin with just paying $3 of gas fee. No other asset could be do that. So if you have gold and you want to move it from one place to another, it's you can't move it. And if even if you move it, you have to pay a lot of money. So Bitcoin is one of those assets where you can transfer really high amount of value with fastly and at almost zero cost. So that's the main thing. Bitcoin was mainly for store of value and transfer. And then and again for now for transfer as well, it's not sustainable because each transaction takes 5 to 10 minutes. So it does not make sense when to send money or when to buy coffee to send that. For that, people can use L2s of Bitcoin with its stacks and stuff. Then came Ethereum, which it's a global computer on top of which you can run applications and on top of which you can build applications. Then after Ethereum, many people started doing the same thing. So Solana, Near, Cosmos, they're all trying to do the same thing which Ethereum was doing, but they're trying to do it faster. They were trying to do it in a more efficient way. And then there are chains like Polkadot and Cosmos, where they're trying to connect all of these blockchains together. And after that, there are altcoin, which are mainly meme coins, which means they don't have any use cases. But
Mhm.
each protocol or each app can have their own coins for own sets of reasons. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it gets complicated, right? So I'm curious too. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this, so like what your take is on the spot Bitcoin ETFs being approved in the United States, and I don't know if they're approved outside of the United States, but I believe in the U.S. And kind of what your perspective is, right? As cryptocurrencies become more mainstream, do you see a lot of money a lot of that mainstream money just going into Bitcoin or Ethereum, or what's your sense on that?
Well, I personally don't have much of a say on this, but it's good for the overall industry where a lot of investors would have exposure to Bitcoin, and now the Bitcoin is almost higher than silver in commodities. So the ETF is actually a good thing for the overall crypto community, where first it would give exposure to people because even right now, if you go talk to people, they don't know that the financial system is broken. They don't know that the governments are printing as much money as they want. They don't know that there exist problems like inflation and all these things. Right? The thing is, people aren't aware that problems exist, so that's why they don't care after. Because if see, if you're being fed and if you're being provided for and all your needs are taken care of, you're very comfortable, right? You won't go out there and look for problems to solve. But in countries where there are problems like Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and all these countries where there's highly inflation, they want solution, but they don't have the power to do so. So having exposure at this level, it's good for the overall industry, where it would bring in more people, more investors, and eventually more smart people in this ecosystem where they can, utilize this technology to solve main problems. Because at the end of the day, this technology is trying to solve problems mainly around the financial problems.
Yeah, maybe we could touch on that a bit, right? Because I'm on board, or I have a general understanding of it. I think it's awesome, right? I could send you Ethereum, Bitcoin right now from the United States to Bahrain. You'd have it in a matter of minutes, and there'd be no third party involved. Whatever. You need a
Yeah,
wallet,
I
but
can give you
that's
I
it.
can give yeah, I can give you an example, right? Um, a lot of different problems. Let's start with the first problem, which is remittance, right? Remittance is a very big industry, and these intermediaries make, I don't know how much money they make. So let's say if I want to send money to someone on the other part of the world, it's my money, right? I would have to pay these guys where I'll pay this exchange or this company, then they would transfer it to a bank, and then one bank to another bank, and then eventually it would end up happening. And then the amount that I send them won't be the same. But each intermediary will keep their cut, and then it would be late. It will take like a week if I want to send to a far country. And again, even if I want to send money to my family in Pakistan, I would have to go through these remittance or these exchanges where they'll charge their cut, and then it would be very slow. Some places it's fast, but it's slow. So the whole concept of this crypto is I own it. It's my money. I can send it with almost zero to no cost. So that's the first problem, like the remittance industry. And then the second is obviously because I personally don't have a really deep understanding of how the banks work and stuff like that. But at a very general high level, once you deposit your money to the bank is taking that money and then lending it and then earning interest. So it's basically your money, but they are using it. Even though we feel that it's secure, but they are using it. And then eventually problems like bank run happen, right? Which happened recently. Even though we think our money is safe, the banks, it's not in safe in the bank list. So the whole concept with crypto is that it's your money. You keep it with you within your own wallet, technically, where you only have access to it.
Yeah. No, I agree, but I think there are just a couple issues, right? So if I send Ethereum to someone in Pakistan, they still have to convert that to the Pakistani currency to buy anything.
Yes.
And then the second point really quick is that I just think that there's hesitation, right? You talked about it when you got into it, you're in this huge bull run, huge market correction. There's just, I guess, currently, or there's a perception of less faith in that it will hold its value, right? It's just more volatile. For me, a United States dollar, yes, there is inflation, but a United States dollar is always a United States dollar. I don't know what the value of Bitcoin is going to be tomorrow. So I just think those are a couple of those issues. I don't know how those are addressed.
Those are valid, right? So for that, the first step is obviously we need centralized exchanges like we have Binance, Coinbase. So obviously that is the first thing we would need. And again, in most of these countries, crypto is illegal. In Pakistan, it's not legal, and in a lot of these countries. So we have a lot of challenges to solve for it, right? So, but again, at some point, we won't even need these exchanges because now the cryptocurrency would become a means of trading value. So if I get paid in crypto, I can buy things in crypto and stuff like that. And then again, there are providers here, mainly in Bahrain, where we can spend our crypto through debit cards. So there's something called Finance Pay and stuff like that. So where like normally I spend my, like my cards, I can use my crypto to spend it. So solutions like this would solve it where we won't even need to convert it into fiat. We can just use it. But the problem of volatility still remains. Therefore, we have solutions like stablecoin. So if someone gets paid, they can convert it into a stable coin and then use that. So at some point we won't even need to convert it into fiat. But for now, yes, we do need it.
But isn't that still connecting it to the fiat system? If you have USDC, I mean, you're still somewhat beholden to the United States dollar. I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's just kind of interesting to think about.
I mean, we'll see how things turn out to be. There are a lot of things that I personally don't even know because there's so much thing. But the highlight is that this technology is something that is worth taking a look at because this will eventually impact everything. Like just how 20 years ago no one took internet seriously, and then every business was affected. So I think this technology is even bigger than that.
Yeah, I like it. So I just have a couple more questions and then we can kind of close. But I'm curious too, if you think about other applications, right? We talked about NFTs. I think NFTs, right, is a proof of ownership. Do you ever think about more mainstream applications where that could be applied? Like an example that comes to mind is if you purchase real estate, right? I purchased a home in the United States. I have to go to the title office and sign 100 documents, right, to confirm that I own the home. It seems like an NFT could simplify that. I don't know if you have worked with clients that are exploring that, or if you have
Well,
an opinion on that.
That's a big industry of tokenization of real estate, and a lot of people want to do this thing, and some people are trying to do it as well, but but regulations come into the way. Um, we have had workshops with clients where they're tokenizing the building, because what happens is that these assets are highly frictional, right? So if a building is worth $10 billion, it would only buy if someone has $10 billion. It will only sell if someone has $10 billion. But what if we can divide that $10 billion into fractions, where each individual investor can buy $10 worth of that building or $100 worth of that building, right? Then it would become non-frictional. So obviously, the tokenization of real estate is something that will eventually happen. There are a lot of companies that are already trying to do, but there are regulations in way. And then again, there are a lot of other factors as well. But this is something that will eventually end up happening, which will create a lot of more opportunities. Because let's say if I want to invest in real estate, there is a certain minimum number that I have to do. And right, as a young individual, I don't have that kind of money. But if I could invest in a building for maybe $500 or a few $1,000s, I would eventually do that. So that's a very interesting use case. A lot of people are working on it, but the regulations and a lot of other things come into it. But in Dubai, there's a platform called Stake, where you can buy a fraction of an apartment. So which basically how it works is that, so let's say if an apartment is worth $1 million, you buy it, right? And you hold those tokens, and then as the value of that apartment appreciates, the value of your token appreciates as well. But you don't get access to that apartment. That company that is doing that, they either puts it on rent or sell it to someone else, and does that. But I, as an investor, I don't want to live there. I just want the value to appreciate. So there are a lot of companies doing it. So that platform is called Stake, STAKE. So they are doing that.
No, that sounds really cool. No, I think interesting, and a point I just want to make is it seems like one of crypto's biggest hurdles is that it does eliminate a lot of those middlemen, whether it's in the financial industry, real estate, whatever it is. And I don't think they're going to give up their position, right, where they make all this money easily. I don't know if you think about that at all. I mean, if you say, hey, sorry, banks are not needed anymore, I mean, the bankers aren't going to take that too kindly.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously there will be resistance, but we'll see how things happen, right? Because yeah, like again, as I said, there's so many factors that come into play, but eventually it would end up happening. But yeah, this technology has use case in real estate. This technology has use cases in retail, for example. And so just one last thing that I wanted to add, which is basically there is a big use case in the ticketing industry. So normally when there are concerts, there are a limited number of tickets, and if it's a really famous singer or celebrity, the tickets got sold out really fast. And then people sell those tickets in black market for 10 times the more price. So if these companies could just have NFTs of their tickets and then allow the transaction to happen on their marketplace, they can keep shares of that that transaction as well. So the tickets that are sold in black market, they would be sold on their platform just because people are the first one to buy. They can do it in a legitimate way. So that's whole another use case in the ticketing industry. And we even pitched this to one of a very famous ticketing company called Platinum last year to do that. But again, they have their own things to focus on, but eventually someone would do it where they'll capture the ticketing market. And again, in football matches and in any sort of sports, this solution can exist where we can just remove the black market. So we'll allow people to trade it on those marketplaces. So let's say if the ticket of the match was worth $10 and you were the first one to buy it, you can sell it for $100 in a legitimate way, and then you make money. The people who were not able to buy the ticket, they are happy, and then the stadium itself makes money as well. So it's a win-win for everyone. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of use cases, right? They're probably more than you can even think of. I mean, just pick an industry and there's a use case, right? So I think that's part of the reason why you're so bullish, right? Is you say, hey, there's a lot of potential here. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but something's going to happen. So maybe we could close. I'll give you the floor. I always like to end, if someone out there, a young person is considering entrepreneurship, I mean, what do you recommend for them? Do you recommend that they go deep into the crypto and Web3, or is there another venture, or is it just building skills? Whatever your advice would be for them.
Well, it's very subjective, to be very honest. But if I was in their position, it's basically instead of thinking and planning too much, just take action. Just do it, right? Instead of waiting and sitting and thinking, just do something, whatever you can find, whatever interests you, just start doing it, because either you will fail or either you will learn. So if someone is young, I would just say any opportunity that they have, just start doing it. But again, if we think of a global level, if you can learn how to code, because again, okay, Naval Ravikant says there are only three leverages in the world with which you can get rich. The first one is either labor leverage. So if you know how to hire people and manage them and make them work for you, then you can make money. But let's say if you're young, you don't have that kind of leverage, right? You don't know how to build a team of people. The second kind of leverage is money leverage. If someone has money, they can use that money to make more money. But let's say if you're young, you don't have that kind of money, or you don't have access to that capital. So these first two options are out of there. But the third leverage is code and media, which basically means that if you can learn how to code and then sell that, then you can make money. Or if you can learn how to do these podcasts or these videos and stuff like that, because then the scale at which these things spread is very high. So I think if someone is young, they can leverage the third option, which is code and media, learn how to code or learn how to make these videos and then go out there. But overall, just take action, because the more you take action, the more you will eventually get ended up anywhere. But if they're young and they're big, I think learn how to code and learn how to sell. If you can learn these two things, you'll become unstoppable.
No, that's great advice. And yeah, I mean, just a point on the code and media piece, right? There's no, like, once you build a successful software application or whatever it is, or you have a successful YouTube channel, there's no cost of replication.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
marginal cost for
I,
each unit,
I
so
I think you're familiar with those three leverages, right?
yeah, I've
Okay,
heard those
that's
as
very
well.
interesting. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. You're all the way
Uh,
across the world as well. So, where can people find you in what you're building?
yeah, they can find our website at nalikes.com, nalikes.com, and I'm active on Twitter and LinkedIn at Talha.
All right, Talha. Thanks so much. I'll link all that in the description. And yeah, hey, I appreciate the time. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Connor. Thank you.